Those stone monsters on old cathedrals have been lying to us for centuries. We were told they were placed there to scare away evil spirits, but that story is only the surface of a much deeper secret. Today, you will learn the real purpose of gargoyles, a truth scientists have just uncovered that rewrites our understanding of medieval genius. How did a simple water spout become a terrifying demon, and what hidden engineering marvel did these creatures actually perform? What do you believe is the most clever solution hidden in plain sight? That terrifying stone face jutting from the cathedral wall is not always what it seems. To find the truth behind their purpose, we must first learn to tell the gargoyles apart from their silent cousins, the grotesques. While both can appear as monstrous chimeras or grimacing beasts, only one has a job to do. A gargoyle is, at its heart, a sophisticated water spout. It is an architectural component carved with a specific function, a channel running through its body that directs rainwater away from the masonry through an open mouth. This is its defining feature. The grotesque, on the other hand, shares the frightening appearance but serves no such practical purpose. It is purely decorative, a stationary sentinel meant to inspire awe or contemplation. This distinction between the worker and the watcher is the key that unlocks everything. For centuries, we have lumped them all together under the label of monster, but science is now revealing that the true marvel lies in the one designed not just to stare, but to spit. That idea of the stone guardian is a powerful one, woven into the very fabric of medieval life. For generations, we accepted that these monstrous forms were apotropaic devices, a term meaning they were designed to ward off evil. The logic was compelling. By carving demons and chimeras onto the holy walls of a cathedral, the church could perform a kind of spiritual sleight of hand. Evil spirits, it was thought, would either be terrified by the fierce visages or become confused, believing such monstrous beings had already claimed the territory as their own. This narrative served a dual purpose. It comforted the faithful by making their place of worship feel like a fortress, and it allowed the church to absorb older, pre-Christian beliefs about spirits inhabiting the natural world, reasserting its own authority over the spiritual landscape. This story was neat, understandable, and persisted for centuries as the definitive answer. Yet this deeply spiritual explanation may have been the perfect cover for a far more practical and truly brilliant earthly innovation. Long before those stone monsters guarded cathedrals, ancient engineers were mastering the flow of water. The need to protect grand structures from rainfall is a challenge as old as civilization itself. In ancient Egypt and Greece, you can find early examples of water spouts designed to project water away from building foundations, but it was the Romans who perfected the system on a massive scale. Their vast aqueducts and intricate lead piping networks required robust outlets, and they often chose the majestic head of a lion to serve this purpose. A lion's gaping mouth was a powerful symbol of strength and authority, making it a fitting terminus for the water that flowed through their cities and bathhouses. This was a clear statement of technical mastery and control over the natural world. The medieval masons who built the great cathedrals were the direct inheritors of this Roman engineering knowledge. They looked at the classical lion head spout and saw its brilliant function, but they also saw a canvas. They took that purely practical form and infused it with the fears, beliefs, and storytelling of their own time, transforming a simple water manager into a creature of profound myth and mystery. This architectural revolution brought with it a very wet problem. The Gothic cathedral was designed to reach for the heavens, its walls replaced by vast sheets of stained glass and its roof supported by a skeletal framework of stone. But these towering heights and sprawling roofs acted like giant catchment basins for rain. Every downpour sent thousands of gallons of water cascading down, and this was not pure, gentle water. It was slightly acidic, capable of slowly dissolving the soft limestone that formed the very bones of these sacred structures. Left unchecked, this relentless runoff would erode mortar, stain the magnificent sculptures, and most dangerously undermine the foundations. The survival of the entire building was at stake, demanding a solution as ambitious as the architecture itself. The flying buttress, that iconic stone arm bracing the wall, solved the problem of weight and light, but it created a new channel for water to flow directly against the building. Medieval masons needed a way to catch this water and throw it clear, a task far beyond the capacity of a simple pipe. They needed a system that could project water a great distance, and they found their answer by looking at the world around them. They observed how a person spits a cherry pit, using a narrow channel and a burst of air to send it flying. This simple principle of pressurized projection became the hidden genius inside their stone monsters. The gargoyle was not merely a drain, it was a meticulously engineered cannon, designed to fire water away from the walls and ensure the cathedral's legacy would endure for centuries. The silent erosion of these sacred walls held the first secret. Modern science has now given those stones a voice through the technology of three-dimensional laser scanning and computational fluid dynamics. Researchers began by creating perfect digital replicas of gargoyles, then subjected them to simulated centuries of relentless rainfall. The results were a revelation. The seemingly chaotic twists and monstrous grimaces were not the product of superstition alone. Every coiled tongue, every flared nostril, and every gaping jaw was a meticulously calculated component of a hydrological machine. The primary goal was achieving throw distance. A simple pipe would allow water to dribble down the wall, but a gargoyle was designed to use the pressure built up in its internal channel to launch that water in a powerful, focused arc. The specific angles of the mouth and the contours of the head were fine-tuned to project the rainwater as far from the foundation as possible. This prevented the devastating splashback that, over hundreds of years, would slowly but surely dissolve the soft limestone mortar binding the cathedral together. What we saw as monstrous features were, in fact, the elegant curves of a medieval fluid engineer's blueprint. That slow, watery death was a chemical war waged by the sky itself. To grasp the sheer necessity of the gargoyle's long-range defense, we need to appreciate the very flesh and bone of the cathedral, the limestone from which it was carved. This beautiful, pale stone was the perfect canvas for sculptors, but it possessed a hidden vulnerability. Limestone is a sedimentary rock, formed over eons from the compressed shells and skeletons of ancient marine life. This origin gives it a soft, porous nature, almost like a hard sponge. When rainwater, which is never truly pure but is naturally slightly acidic from absorbing carbon dioxide in the air, flows over this surface, a silent reaction begins. The acid in the water slowly dissolves the calcite, the essential mineral glue that holds the stone particles together. This isn't a simple surface stain you can wash away. It is a fundamental breakdown, a process scientists call dissolution, where the stone's own binding agent is systematically washed away grain by grain. Imagine a sandcastle where the moisture between the grains is slowly removed, the structure becoming friable and weak. This is the invisible threat the cathedral faced every time it rained. The gargoyle, therefore, was not a superstitious ornament. It was the castle's primary guardian in a relentless battle against decay, a meticulously engineered system designed to protect the building's very skeleton from this inevitable decline. But the stones were not only protecting the building from a silent chemical war, they were also defending the space within from a different kind of invasion, one of overwhelming noise. The vast, cavernous interior of a cathedral, with its high vaulted ceilings and hard stone surfaces, was designed to amplify sound, to carry a single voice or a sacred chant to every corner. This same acoustic marvel, however, turned the drumming of a heavy downpour on the massive roof into a deafening roar. The sound inside could become so thunderous it would shatter the very atmosphere of contemplation, making prayer or ceremony nearly impossible. This is where the Gargoyles revealed their second, hidden talent. Scientists using advanced acoustic modeling have proposed a brilliant theory. The entire network of gargoyles projecting from the roofline was not just a drainage system, it was a sophisticated form of medieval sound engineering. By catching the immense sheet of water rushing off the roof and dividing it into hundreds of individual streams, each gargoyle fundamentally changed the physics of the sound. A single massive wall of water hitting the ground creates a loud, broadband roar, but dozens of smaller, separate streams landing at slightly different times and places produce a collection of softer, more isolated splashes. The gargoyles effectively broke the sonic impact of the rain, transforming a potentially disruptive cacophony into a more diffuse, almost rhythmic background trickle. This distributed system of noise dampening helped preserve the serene and sacred quiet of the cathedral's interior, proving that these stone sentinels were not just guardians of stone and mortar, but also protectors of peace itself. Yet this engineering marvel also served a master of the mind. Those terrifying faces staring down from the heights were not merely byproducts of a drainage system, they were a deliberate psychological instrument. In a world where the threat of eternal consequences felt as real as the rain, the Church understood that to control the environment was to influence the heart. The gargoyle became a permanent, stone-carved sermon. Its monstrous form gave a tangible shape to the formless dangers believed to lurk beyond the church doors, the chaos and sin that threatened the soul. By placing these embodiments of evil on the very walls of the sanctuary, the message was unmistakable. Here, the demons are outside, held at bay. Here, within, you are safe. This clever use of symbolic fear reinforced a powerful social order, guiding behavior by making the spiritual battle visible. The gargoyle did not just protect the physical building from erosion, it helped fortify the church's role as the sole bastion against spiritual peril, offering a profound sense of security to all who sought refuge beneath its spouting guardians. The monstrous forms jutting from the towers did more than just manage water and sound. They were literally holding the building together. Advanced structural analysis has uncovered a third, hidden layer of genius in their design. While gargoyles appear to be delicate sculptures clinging to the facade, their immense stone mass and precise placement were often calculated to serve as counterweights. At the vulnerable corners of towers or the soaring peaks of facades, the thrust from the immense stone vaults inside created powerful outward forces. The weight of a strategically positioned gargoyle acted as a perfect balance, a kind of stone anchor that helped stabilize these complex forces. This means the gargoyle was not merely an appendage, it was an integrated, load-bearing component of the Gothic skeleton. What we perceive as a terrifying demon or a mythical beast is, in structural terms, a critical piece of the architectural puzzle. Its frightening form is not just carved onto the building, it is woven into the very fabric of its stability, a perfect marriage of artistic vision and profound engineering insight that allowed these stone giants to touch the sky. Behind every terrifying stone face was a master of geometry and force. The gargoyles we marvel at today are the direct legacy of the medieval master mason, a figure who was part architect, part engineer, and part artist. These individuals were the brilliant civil engineers of their era, commanding a deep and often secretive understanding of physics and material properties. Their knowledge was not written in books for all to see, but passed down through generations within closed guilds, a guarded treasure of practical wisdom. They calculated the precise angles needed to throw water a specific distance. They understood how the weight of their stone creations could stabilize a wall, and they knew exactly how to carve limestone to withstand centuries of weather. They worked from intricate plans, complex geometric drawings that dictated the structural necessities of each piece. Yet within that framework of rigid engineering, they were granted a remarkable freedom. This is the secret to the wild, breathtaking diversity of gargoyle designs. The same functional channel that had to project water 20 feet could be carved as the throat of a dragon, the beak of a griffin, or the twisted tongue of a demon. The mason's hand was guided by mathematical certainty, but his imagination was allowed to soar. This unique fusion of disciplined problem-solving and untamed creative expression is why these functional spouts became enduring works of art. They are not just solutions to a physical problem, but solutions that speak to the human spirit, proving that even the most practical task can be elevated into a legacy of stone. A stroll through Europe's cathedral towns reveals that these stone guardians speak with distinct local accents. The gargoyles of Notre-Dame in Paris stretch toward the sky with an otherworldly elegance, their forms lean and fantastical. Cross the Channel to England, and you encounter creatures that are more robust, often grounded in an earthier grotesquerie. Journey south to Italy, and the classical influence of Rome is unmistakable, with figures that recall ancient myth more than medieval nightmare. This was far more than artistic whim. Each regional style was a brilliant, localized adaptation to the environment. In areas with heavy, driving rains, the gargoyles were carved with wider, more pronounced channels to handle the deluge. Where winds came from a consistent direction, the stone mouths were angled to exploit that pressure, launching water even farther from the walls. The very stone itself dictated the possibilities. A mason working with soft limestone could carve intricate, flowing details that would be impossible in a harder, more granular granite. The local folklore and fears of the community were then woven into this functional framework, creating a creature that was perfectly suited to its place. The gargoyle was a universal solution, but its final form was a deeply personal conversation between the master mason, the climate, and the very bedrock upon which the city stood. So why did a simple drainage problem demand such monstrous solutions? The choice of demons, chimeras, and mythical beasts was a stroke of profound psychological and practical genius. Think of the medieval world as a place filled with unseen dangers, where the wilderness beyond the town walls was a literal and spiritual unknown. The church, in its role as spiritual guide, sought to bring order to this chaos. By carving every conceivable monster onto its walls, it was performing a powerful act of symbolic control. It was visually cataloging the entire menagerie of human fear, from the lions described in bestiaries to the dog-headed men whispered about in travelers' tales, and declaring them all subservient to the sacred structure. Each grotesque face was a captured trophy, a declaration that even the most terrifying forces of the world were now bound to serve a holy purpose. The very stones of the church were teaching a lesson that the divine order had tamed the wild and the demonic, turning them to a higher use. This visual sermon made the building not just a shelter from the rain, but a fortress against spiritual peril. But this symbolic mastery was perfectly married to a brutal physical practicality. The function of the gargoyle dictated its frightening form. A wide, gaping mouth was the most effective water spout. A long, protruding neck could house the necessary channel and increase the throw distance. A twisted, muscular body offered the stone mass needed for structural stability and could be shaped to guide the internal flow of water with minimal resistance. The masons did not simply stick a spout onto a sculpture, they designed the sculpture around the spout. The demonic grimace was not just for show, it was the optimal aerodynamic shape for launching a stream of water 20 feet into the air. The chimera's coiled tongue helped direct the flow. In this perfect fusion, the gargoyle became more than the sum of its parts, a creature whose terrifying appearance was the direct and brilliant result of its equally clever physical function. This brilliant fusion of engineering and artistry could not last forever. So how did the world forget the gargoyle's true purpose, letting its practical genius fade behind a veil of superstition? The shift began with a profound change in taste. As the Gothic age gave way to the Renaissance, a new ideal of order and classical harmony took hold. The soaring, complex cathedrals of the medieval period were suddenly seen as chaotic and barbaric, their wild stone creatures dismissed as the crude fantasies of a less enlightened time. The intricate water management systems, so vital to the building's survival, were simply no longer understood or appreciated by the new architects who favored clean lines and clear geometry. The gargoyle was demoted in the public mind from a marvel of medieval engineering to a mere grotesque curiosity. Then, centuries later, a second wave of interest arrived, but it carried the truth even further away. The Romantic era of the 19th century fell in love with the Gothic once more, but it was a love affair built on drama and emotion. Writers and artists, captivated by ruins and shadows, repopulated the cathedrals with ghosts and demons. They saw the gargoyles not as hydrological components, but as the perfect symbols of a mysterious, supernatural past. In their poems and paintings, these stone creatures became eternal guardians against evil spirits, a romantic notion that was far more thrilling than their actual job of managing stormwater. This powerful new story, repeated in best-selling novels and dramatic artworks, completely overwrote the original blueprint in the popular imagination. The gargoyle's sophisticated function was buried under layers of Gothic fiction, and the master mason's ingenious solution was lost, waiting centuries for science to finally hear the water flowing through the stone. The silent language of these stone creatures finally found its interpreter in the hum of a supercomputer. For centuries, the master mason's engineering secrets were locked away, inaccessible without the tools to ask the right questions. The breakthrough came with technologies that allowed us to see through the stone, to analyze the gargoyle not as a static sculpture, but as a dynamic system in motion. The first step was three-dimensional laser scanning, a process that captures the exact geometry of a fragile, centuries-old carving without ever making physical contact. This creates a perfect digital twin, a ghost of the original, which can then be placed inside a virtual environment. Here, the second tool takes over, a powerful software used by aerospace and automotive engineers known as computational fluid dynamics. This program can simulate the behavior of fluids with astonishing accuracy. Researchers could feed their digital gargoyle into this virtual wind tunnel, subjecting it to simulated downpours that would take real stone centuries to experience. They watched as digital water rushed through the internal channel and exploded from the mouth, tracing its arc and measuring its force. They discovered that every contour, every subtle curve of the tongue or flare of a nostril had a measurable impact on the water's trajectory. A slight bulge here would minimize turbulent splashback. A specific angle there would maximize the throw distance, launching the water clear of the foundation in a clean, powerful stream. This was not guesswork, it was a precise and repeatable hydraulic performance, now made visible for the first time in 800 years. Another technique, finite element analysis, was used to probe the gargoyle's role as a structural component. This software models how physical forces like weight, wind, and pressure distribute themselves through an object. By applying this to their digital models, scientists could see the invisible lines of stress flowing through the stone. They confirmed that the gargoyle's mass was often strategically placed to act as a counterweight, its form carefully shaped to handle the immense compressive and tensile forces acting upon it without cracking. The terrifying grimace was not just an expression, it was the optimal shape for managing both hydraulic flow and structural load. These non-invasive tools did more than just confirm a theory, they allowed us to reverse engineer the medieval mind. We can now look at a gargoyle and understand the why behind its wild form, seeing the brilliant functional logic that has been hiding in plain sight all along. The devastating fire at Notre-Dame Cathedral was a profound loss felt across the world. Yet from the ashes of that tragedy arose an unparalleled scientific opportunity, a chance to examine the cathedral's stone anatomy in a way that was never before possible. As restorers carefully removed the gargoyles from the damaged upper galleries, these stone guardians finally revealed their deepest secrets under the exacting gaze of modern technology. Detailed scans and material analysis confirmed what had long been theorized. Each grotesque form was a meticulously calibrated component of a grand hydrological system. The channels carved through their cores were worn smooth by centuries of flowing water, their mouths angled with precision to cast rainfall far from the fragile walls and foundational stone. This was not a secondary function, it was their primary reason for being. The evidence was etched into the stone itself, a permanent record of their relentless, practical labor. Beyond the stone, the very metal used to repair them over the ages told its own story. An analysis of the lead fittings and patches revealed a timeline of continuous maintenance. Each repair from the medieval period through the 19th century was not merely cosmetic. It was a functional fix, a clear indication that generations of builders understood these creatures were not just decorative sculptures. They were working parts of a living building, and their ability to manage water was paramount to the cathedral's survival. Notre-Dame stands as the ultimate testament to the gargoyle's dual nature. Its most famous gargoyles stare out over Paris with a legendary, fearsome symbolism, yet their true legacy is one of quiet, hydrological genius. They are the perfect embodiment of the medieval mind, a fusion of profound spiritual storytelling and grounded, brilliant engineering, forever guarding the cathedral from both the storms of the heavens and the slow decay of time. That passive, durable approach to managing water reveals the gargoyle as a forgotten piece of ancient eco-technology. These stone creatures operated entirely without the need for energy-consuming pumps or complex internal plumbing. They were a self-sufficient system activated by the rain itself. Every downpour was met with an immediate, silent response, a network of stoneworkers channeling the deluge away from the vulnerable building fabric. By protecting the soft limestone and critical mortar joints, they prevented the kind of foundational erosion that would have demanded constant, resource-heavy repairs. The gargoyles' work extended the cathedral's structural life for centuries, dramatically reducing the need for quarrying new stone, transporting massive materials, and the immense labor of rebuilding. This is a profound lesson in sustainability from the medieval world. It demonstrates a principle modern architects are now rediscovering: the idea of working with natural forces like gravity and rainfall rather than fighting them with energy-intensive technology. The gargoyle stands as a medieval precursor to today's green roofs and rainwater harvesting systems, a testament to how durable, passive design can create a legacy that literally stands the test of time. The true purpose of these stone engineers was a secret kept by the masters. For the vast majority of people living in the medieval world, the cathedral was not a textbook of engineering principles. It was a living storybook written in stone, a visual narrative for a population that could not read the written word. The intricate carvings of saints, the scenes from scripture, and yes, the terrifying gargoyles all formed chapters in this three-dimensional Bible. The complex hydraulic and structural reasons for the gargoyles' forms were likely specialized knowledge, carefully guarded within the masons' guilds and understood by the clergy who commissioned the work. This technical truth was simply not the most effective story to tell a community whose world view was shaped by the immediate presence of spiritual forces. A far more powerful and accessible explanation was needed, one that could be easily grasped and passed from one generation to the next through the vibrant network of oral tradition. The idea that these fierce stone figures were there to scare away demons or trap evil spirits was a perfect fit. It was emotionally resonant, instantly understandable, and it transformed a functional waterspout into an active guardian of the soul. This folk explanation did more than just answer a question. It reinforced the cathedral's role as a sacred fortress. The simpler story was not a lie, but a translation, a way of making the building's profound complexity meaningful to every person who walked through its doors. It was this very accessibility that ensured the legend's survival, allowing it to flourish in the popular imagination long after the master mason's original blueprints had been forgotten or misunderstood. This very dilemma now confronts every architect tasked with saving a cathedral. A gargoyle worn smooth by centuries of rain can no longer throw water, its open mouth softened into a silent, crumbling O. Do we carve a perfect copy, freezing its final shape in time, or do we redesign its inner channel based on modern fluid dynamics to make it work even better than before? This question splits the world of restoration into two camps. On one side are the traditionalists who champion historical accuracy above all. For them, every chip and curve is part of the building's story, a sacred text written in stone. To alter that text with a new design, no matter how well-intentioned, is to erase a piece of history itself. It would be like rewriting a page from an ancient manuscript because we think we can improve the grammar. The opposing view argues that the most profound form of respect is to honor the original intent, not just the original form. The master mason's primary goal was not to create a static sculpture, but a functioning component of a living, breathing building. His genius was practical. If we have new tools that allow us to fulfill his hydrological mission with greater precision, are we not being more faithful to his spirit by using them? This debate forces us to ask a difficult question. Is a cathedral's soul found in the exact shape of its stones, or in the enduring performance of the systems that keep it standing? The answer is not simple, because a working gargoyle is both a piece of art and a piece of essential machinery. To let it fail as a water spout for the sake of its appearance is to allow the very structure it was designed to protect to slowly suffer. Yet to radically change its historic form is to risk losing the unique artistic voice of the mason who carved it. Some modern projects attempt a careful compromise. They might recreate the external appearance of a grotesque with perfect fidelity, but use advanced scanning to subtly tweak the internal water channel, optimizing its flow without changing a single visible line. This is preservation in the truest sense, maintaining the story the stone tells to the world while ensuring it can still perform its ancient, vital duty. The silent, eroded gargoyle challenges us to define authenticity not as a frozen moment, but as a continuous, living purpose. That architectural language of stone guardians soon whispered across the ocean. As European settlers and architects brought their traditions to the New World, they carried the gargoyle with them, not as a functional necessity, but as a powerful symbol. These stone creatures found a new home on the grand buildings of the 19th and early 20th centuries. From the soaring towers of the Washington National Cathedral to the solemn halls of universities and countless Gothic revival churches. Yet in this new context, something fundamental had changed. Modern plumbing and internal downspouts had rendered their ancient hydrological role completely obsolete. The gargoyles dotting the American skyline were, for the most part, purely decorative. They became nostalgic homages, stone souvenirs from an older architectural tradition, their open mouths now permanently dry. This shift from worker to watcher is profoundly telling. It demonstrates that even when the brilliant engineering was no longer needed, the symbolic power of the form was irresistible. These New World grotesques served as stone ambassadors, a deliberate echo of a medieval past that lent gravity, history, and a sense of sacred grandeur to a relatively young nation's landscape. Their persistence proves that the gargoyle's true legacy is a dual one, a perfect marriage of function and symbol, where the symbol can endure long after the original function has been made redundant by progress. That same misunderstood aura now animates our screens and pages. The gargoyle, stripped of its hydrological duty, has found a vibrant second life in modern popular culture. Its journey from cathedral waterspout to cinematic guardian is a direct inheritance of the romantic fiction that recast it as a supernatural sentinel. Today, these creatures are staples of fantasy, from the pages of epic novels to the digital landscapes of video games. They are almost universally depicted as ancient stone skin protectors, cursed to immobility by day but bursting into fearsome life by night to defend their territory. This modern mythology is a powerful echo of the medieval belief that these figures warded off evil, but it completely severs the connection to their engineering reality. The fictional gargoyle is no longer a component of a building, it has become the building's soul. This transformation reveals a fascinating cultural process. When a functional object's original purpose is forgotten or obscured, it becomes a blank slate. Its mysterious form invites new stories. We look at that stone face and no longer see a water channel. We see a trapped intelligence, a dormant power, a creature waiting for its moment. We project our own contemporary fears and fantasies onto its weathered surface, turning a medieval tool into a symbol of eternal vigilance. In doing so, we ensure its relevance endures, not as a piece of plumbing, but as a permanent fixture of our collective imagination, forever watching from the shadows we create for it. We must untangle the gargoyle from the web of modern myths that have clouded its true nature. The most basic confusion lies in the name itself. People often use the word gargoyle to describe any strange stone creature adorning an old building, but this is not accurate. Remember, a gargoyle is specifically a waterspout, an active worker with a channel through its body designed to eject water. Its silent companion, the grotesque, shares the frightening appearance but serves no hydraulic purpose. They are two distinct classes of architectural feature, one a functional machine, the other a symbolic sculpture. Another widespread belief is that these figures were intended as direct illustrations of biblical damnation or the gruesome fate of sinners. While the church certainly used art to convey moral lessons, the gargoyles themselves were rarely so literal. Their designs sprang from a far more eclectic source, drawing from ancient bestiaries, local folklore, and the sheer limitless imagination of the carvers. They were a menagerie of the fantastic, not a gallery of punishment. This leads to the third, and perhaps most persistent, oversimplification, the idea that they were a tool to scare an uneducated peasantry into obedience. This view is not only condescending but historically narrow. The cathedral was a spiritual center for the entire community, from the nobility to the clergy to the common folk. The gargoyle's message of protection and the taming of chaos was meant for every soul who entered, and their function as water managers served the entire building's physical integrity. And of course, the charming notion that these stone beings magically come to life at night is a wonderful piece of modern fantasy, a testament to their powerful presence in our imagination, but it has no roots in medieval belief or purpose. By setting these stories aside, we can finally see the gargoyle for its genuine marvel, a sophisticated piece of architectural technology whose genius was hiding in plain sight all along. The secrets these stone engineers hold are not all locked in the past. Our understanding of their true purpose is now accelerating, propelled by new technologies that let us ask questions the medieval masons could never have anticipated. The future of gargoyle studies lies not just in looking at them, but in listening to them in real time. Imagine tiny environmental sensors, no larger than a coin, discreetly placed on active gargoyles during a restoration project. These devices could collect a constant stream of data, measuring the exact volume of water flowing through the channel during a storm, the speed of the exit stream, and the precise impact of wind on its trajectory. This live feedback would transform our static models into a dynamic understanding, revealing how a 900-year-old design performs against the elements of the 21st century. We could finally move from simulation to confirmation, witnessing the master mason's genius in action drop by drop. Another untapped avenue lies not in the stone itself, but in the word we use to describe it. The term gargoyle originates from an old French word for throat, a clear nod to its function. But how did its meaning drift so far from a simple waterspout to a supernatural guardian in our modern lexicon? A deep sociolinguistic study could trace this fascinating evolution, mapping how the word's usage in texts, sermons, and eventually Gothic novels slowly divorced it from its engineering roots and cloaked it in layers of myth. This is more than an academic exercise. It reveals how our language shapes our perception of history, allowing a functional term to be completely rewritten by centuries of storytelling. Perhaps the most intimate records are etched into the stone at a microscopic level. The wear patterns inside a gargoyle's water channel are like the rings of a tree, a hidden archive of its long service. By analyzing the subtle grooves and polished surfaces with high-resolution scanners, researchers could deduce not just how much water flowed, but the specific nature of that water. The abrasive grit carried in runoff from different eras would leave distinct microscopic signatures, telling a story of environmental change right down to the particulates in the medieval air. This geological memory could reveal the intensity of past weather patterns, the frequency of storms, and even the long-term environmental shifts the cathedral has witnessed, all read from the silent, smooth throat of a single grotesque head. This emerging field is a beautiful collision of disciplines where archaeologists, fluid dynamicists, and climate scientists now speak the same language. The gargoyle has become a unique touchstone, a piece of cultural heritage that is also a precise scientific instrument. It promises that these silent sentinels, having guarded the physical and spiritual integrity of our greatest buildings for nearly a millennium, are not yet finished telling their stories. They simply wait for us to develop the new questions and the new ears required to hear their faint, watery whispers across the centuries. This stone guardian was never just one thing. It was the ultimate medieval multitasker, a single form engineered to solve a dozen different problems at once. Think of the cathedral not as a static monument, but as a living, breathing ecosystem. The gargoyle was the keystone species in that ecosystem, a creature whose existence supported the entire structure's health. It was the building's circulatory system, channeling lifeblood away from its vulnerable heart. It was its acoustic engineer, filtering out the roar of the heavens to preserve a space for quiet prayer. It was a structural anchor, its weight carefully calculated to stabilize the very walls it adorned. And for every person who looked up, it was a powerful spiritual emblem, a permanent reminder that this sacred space was a fortress against chaos. The recent scientific revelations do not erase this rich symbolism. Instead, they complete the picture. They show us that the medieval mind saw no hard border between the physical and the spiritual worlds. A device that expertly managed stormwater was not seen as merely practical. It was a manifestation of divine order imposed upon the natural world. Protecting the stone walls from erosion was, in a very real sense, synonymous with protecting the community of faith housed within them. The master mason's true genius was this seamless integration. He did not bolt a scary face onto a drainpipe. He designed a creature whose terrifying grimace was the optimal shape for launching water, whose coiled body housed a stable structural mass, and whose monstrous presence delivered a sermon on the triumph of holiness. This is the holistic system, a perfect fusion where engineering, art, and faith were not competing ideas, but different expressions of the same profound truth. The silent watchers on our cathedrals have finally begun to speak, and the story they tell is far more fascinating than any legend we invented for them. They are not crude relics of superstition, but monuments to a profound medieval ingenuity that saw no boundary between art, science, and faith. This single stone form was engineered to solve multiple challenges at once, a holistic system where a demon's grimace was the perfect shape for a water cannon, and a chimera's body was the ideal counterweight for a soaring tower. The recent discoveries by scientists do not strip away their mystery, they deepen it. They reveal a culture with a sophisticated, almost intuitive understanding of the natural world, one that sought to create lasting beauty not in spite of functional demands, but directly through them. The gargoyle is a testament to a world where solving a practical problem was itself a spiritual act, a way of imposing divine order on the chaos of wind and rain. So the next time you stand before these ancient structures, look up, see the gargoyles not as frozen monsters, but as the masterful solutions they truly are. See the water manager in the gaping mouth, the acoustic engineer in the network of spouts, and the structural genius in the coiled stone. They are the enduring voice of the master masons, a reminder that the most brilliant answers are often those that work in silence for centuries. If this journey into hidden history has enlightened you, consider subscribing for more explorations into the secrets of the past. We would love to hear which of these remarkable discoveries resonated most with you, so please share your thoughts in the comments below.